Okay, fans, coming to us today from the south side of Chicago. He's ready to make a Chi-Town beatdown on you. He is the Chicago Bear Hug himself. From OVW, it's Steve Michaels. How's it going, my
Hey,
man?
man. Going well. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Great to have you here. We've had a couple of your members on before in the past, but that's nothing about them. Let's talk about you today. What we do here on the Eeez N Beez Podcast, Steve, is we dive into a little bit of your wrestling world. We also dive into a couple things outside of the world, but it's breakfast related. So we'll definitely dive into a couple food item questions here in a few. But before we do that, buddy, how about you tell my friends and my listeners out there, how'd you get your start in wrestling?
Yeah, so actually got my start a little bit later in life. I got started wrestling at 28. Um, Moved down to Florida from Chicago. Trained for about a year and a half with the Dudleys at Team 3D. From there, went over to Pro Wrestling 2.0 to sit under a different learning tree, learn some new styles. There I learned from Mecha Wolf 450 and from Jesus Rodriguez, who most people would better know as Ricardo Rodriguez from WWE. Two great minds there. Um, Started to really get a foothold doing shows down in Florida. Got an opportunity to come back home to Chicago to start working again. So I moved back home to the Chi-Town and have just kind of been moving forward and moving upward ever since.
Awesome. So sounds like you got a plethora of people training you that's got a really big history in the wrestling world. What can you tell us that you kind of took from them guys?
It's interesting. Everybody's got their. You can watch them on TV and see everyone's got their own style of wrestling, um, but in that everyone's got their own little nuances and little ways of doing things a little bit differently. So I could learn and do the same move with four different trainers,
Mm-hmm.
and each one does it slightly different.
Sure.
So you learn different ways to perfect your craft, and you learn different ways to actually perform each move and to execute each move as best as possible.
Okay, good. Well, while we're kind of on that topic, how about this, Steve? Who's your favorite wrestler of all time then?
Oh man, this is kind of an odd one, but I've been a big fan of Nick Bockwinkel for
Oh, okay.
years.
Sure.
He's actually on the poster right behind me. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, right over
but
your left shoulder there.
I've always been a big fan of him, his work. Uh, in my opinion, some of the best promos ever in the business. Just a really kind of great all around worker.
That's awesome because, a lot of times here on the Eeez N Beez, when I ask that question to my interviewees, we get usually a more up-to-date wrestler. And I love when I hear stuff like that from people like you, because, that tells me that you are a historian in this and you do study the game more than just, do it for a hobby. And that's great because that's what I like to hear. That's what I like to do. I like to dig deep. I like to, learn a lot about wrestling. I don't claim to be a historian. I never probably will be, but I just love the sport so much. And it sounds like we kind of bleed in the same pot there, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, look, growing up, I watched Austin, I watched Rock, I watched Michaels, I watched Goldberg. I saw all these guys doing really great stuff. But as I got older, and as my world kind of expanded, you know, growing up in Chicago, my dad, he was a big fan of the AWA. So he introduced me actually to Nick Bockwinkel. And I kind of, I watched old tapes, I found old matches online,
Yeah.
really started to learn more and more about, the AWA, the NWA, the Smoky Mountain, and kind of watch all those tapes now. And I've got DVDs and videos from all these places that I still go to and watch.
That's awesome. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here, Mike or Steve. I want to ask you, tomorrow you're making breakfast for two, but you're not just making it for just anybody special. You're going to make it for a wrestling personality or a wrestler. Who's it going to be and what are you having?
Oh man. I think man, I think I would make a meal for myself and probably Big Show because
Oh, okay.
I think both of us could eat a nice big meal. So probably have a lot of bacon, pancakes, make some French toast, uh, sausage, literally anything you could think of breakfast food.
Yeah.
Probably make it and then go ahead and eat it.
Awesome. Awesome. I would love to be there for that. I just wouldn't love to pay for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for real.
Hey, let me ask you this. What's the top 3 podcasts you listen to right now?
Besides this one?
Sure.
Um,
And thank you so much for listening.
yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of I like there's this podcast called King's Fall AM. And it's they've been on a hiatus due to the pandemic, but it's all about it's almost like a radio drama that takes
Okay.
place in this town called King Falls, where a whole bunch of weird stuff happens and there's monsters and aliens and all this kind of wacky stuff. So that's a fun one to listen to on the drives. I am a fan of honestly, I'm a fan of Cornette.
Okay.
I like listening to his stuff. He's controversial.
Very controversial. We love him here on the Eeez N Beez.
Very
Yeah,
controversial.
he could be on both sides of the street sometimes with us, but you can't go wrong with him because we know how much he's put into this and where he's been. But yeah.
And for me, I try and have more of an old school look on things. So, some of his more, I guess, kind of dated opinions on, what a show is and should be, I tend to lean more towards, but he can be a little bit out there sometimes too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a give and take. It's a give and take there.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and then I listen to Jericho's as well.
Awesome. That's another one of our favorites here. Obviously, we follow everything Jericho does. He puts us over on the Winnipeggers a few times here recently, so we obviously love Jericho on the Eeez N Beez. Hey, let me ask you this, Steve. If you wasn't wrestling, what would you be doing?
Actually, I in college I studied anthropology. So ideally I would be working in a museum someplace.
Okay.
Or out on a dig some in the middle of the Southwest and finding some pretty cool artifacts.
Awesome. So an archaeologist, it sounds is right up your sleeve, huh?
Yeah, it's that was a childhood dream that
Okay.
to do, and it's I went from going from one childhood dream to another at wrestling, so it's been pretty good.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. You don't hear that very often, and then that's definitely a great thing to be doing in your spare time. I'm sure you probably do a lot of history and looking at artifacts and all that great stuff. But hey, let's talk about wrestling again, though, Steve. Let me ask you this one. What's your favorite thing about it?
It's for me, it's the crowds, man. I love entertaining the crowds. Um, there's nothing better than when you get out there, you hear the crowd start chanting for you, you hear the crowd start booing you because of
Yeah.
something you've done, cheering you because of something you've done. There's there's a level of almost power to that where it's just you have everybody in your hand, and what you do controls everybody in this arena, uh even if it's just a little look towards the crowd, if it's
Right.
just something you say to your opponent. It's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. The facial expressions are really big, especially when the fans are there. And I can agree with you 100%. Coming off of a event that I just went to this weekend, small crowd. Obviously, they went through all the guidelines, made sure they were up to date with that. But it was just awesome to be there. And let alone there wasn't that many people. It was just amazing to see the reactions of the wrestlers off of what the fans were doing. And I could agree with you. You know, the fans are 100% what makes this sport the best, but we got to start somewhere. And that's why we bring people like you on my show here at the Eeez N Beez, because we feel like, you know, the indies don't get talked about enough here and they go unseen a lot. And on our show, we push the OVW product, the Rocky Mountain Pro product. We push anything that wants to come on the show. The door's always open. But what we want to push the most is, you know, you guys have a story. You guys have a reason why you're doing this. And I love hearing it and I love sharing it with our fans. And we're going to continue to do this until we can't no more. And that's why we bring you on this show, because you've got to start somewhere, Steve. And I think that you're on the right track right now where you're at there at OVW. And if you guys have not checked out Steve Michaels' Legacy of Brutality member, make sure you go to ovw.com, check out some of his work. He's the biggest, baddest bear hug man I've ever seen, that's for sure.
You know, it's as I've had the opportunity to wrestle, you know, across the country on shows, and there's something special about OVW. You know, it's again kind of going back to the history of it. You know, you know all the guys that have gone through there. You know the kind of the legacy of the titles that have all that are still there. There's something special about when you first walk into that building. And as a performer, there's something even more special about, you know, being able to learn from Al Snow. You know,
yeah,
we've got Doug Basham there. Doug's a phenomenal mind, great tag team mind. So he's always really great to talk to and pick his mind about my tag matches that I'm having there. There's just so many resources at your disposal there, and it's I couldn't be happier about where I'm at right now.
That's awesome, and I could agree. It's a great place. It's a great product to watch on TV or wherever you do watch it. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen here in the future as we going into the summer seasons. But hey, let me ask you this, Steve. What's your wrestling goal?
You know, I think everybody kind of wants to kind of get to WWE at some point. I personally would love to work in Japan.
Ooh, yeah.
A lot of my idols made a name for themselves over in Japan. And it's, you know, that's always kind of been a personal dream for me. If I get a chance to go over there, do a couple tours, I think I'd be a pretty happy man.
I would agree with you, and maybe I could go with you because that's one of my
real.
dreams too. You know, some people don't understand that the wrestling over there is so much different. But when you're a wrestling nerd like me, one of these days I'm gonna get there. I hope before I pass. But I could agree with you on that. Definitely a good goal to have. Hey, I only got a couple more left for you before I turn the table over and let you promote yourself here, Steve. But I gotta ask this next one, and I want an honest answer from you, buddy. All right.
All right.
All right. So next week, Netflix is starting a new reality series about you. What's the name of it, and what actor is playing you?
Oh man, I would call it Wrestling with Ghosts.
Oh, all right.
And man, who would play me? I don't know. It would have to be someone. It would have to be someone kind of. I mean, obviously very handsome.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
so it has to be somebody. It don't have to be somebody that necessarily is the same size as you. How about maybe just looks like you, or somebody somebody
you know what
you look like?
Do you know what I think I would? I'd probably go the complete opposite, and have myself played by like someone weird like Jake Gyllenhaal or something, just
Okay.
so you could just be like, you know, hey, you know, oh, this guy seems like he's cool. Then you actually go and look him up, and it's like that looks nothing like him, you know. And that's the whole rib about the whole show, is that it's, you know, it's about me, but the guy looks absolutely nothing like me.
Awesome. I think I definitely would be tuning into that for sure. Well, hey, I got one more to ask you before I turn the table over, Steve, and it's a pretty tough one, but I need to know, what's the future look like for you at OVW?
You know, I think the future looks really bright. You know, I'm running with the Legacy of Brutality, and having Josh Ashcraft is my manager, being side by side with Cash Flow, Isaiah, Big Zoe. You know, Zoe and I are doing some really great tag team stuff right now. I know my goal and Zoe's goal is to have those OVW tag team titles once again. So that's my my personal goal is to have those titles back by the end of the year, and for Zoe and I to own the tag division and the LOB to run OVW once again.
Okay, that sounds like a very doable goal. You know, we wish you luck here at the Eeez N Beez for sure, and we'll definitely be keeping our eyes very close on that situation going forward. But before I get you out of here, man, as I always do with all my interviewees, is there any questions you got for old Eddie B here?
You know, I just want to say I personally I appreciate you having me on here. I've been listening to your show, heard a lot of great things. The boys are talking about good things about your show. If there's any of the boys that are listening right now, this is a good show to come on. I greatly appreciate this, man. So just thank you for giving me the time.
No, thank you, buddy. This show is meant for people like you out there that needs to get the word out of what they're missing out on. And that's OVW wrestling right now and some of the best wrestling going on in the world. And it's Steven Michaels from the Legacy of Brutality, buddy. Before I go, is there anybody, or can you put over your where people can find you at? My fault.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Chicago Bear Hug. You can find my merch on Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/Chicago Bear Hug. I like to try and keep that simple, so it's all kind of the same across the board. I'm always, I'm hopefully once things clear up, you'll be able to see me at more shows. But yeah, those are the biggest places you can follow me and keep up with me at.
Well, awesome. Make sure all you listeners out there take a few seconds out of your day, look him up. From OVW, folks, the Chicago Bear Hug, Steve Michaels.
And if really quick, if they want to catch me on TV, you got to watch OVW wrestling nationally on the YTA network. That's every Friday at midnight Eastern, 11 Central. And it's also on Roku, Fire Stick. So I mean, you can catch up on all your past OVW episodes there as well.
Awesome. Well, we thank you once again for coming on, and we'll hope to catch up with you very soon when things open up, buddy.
Hey, thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.